You ever notice how just completely wiped you felt as a teenager? Like you could sleep forever.
Oh, definitely. It's practically a universal experience, right?
Yeah.
Those teenage years are full of, well, sleepiness.
Exactly. But what if I told you that might not be so universal after all?
Oh, okay. You've got my attention.
Yeah. So today we're going deep, really deep into how sleep patterns in teenagers actually differ, like across different countries and even different socioeconomic groups.
Fascinating. So are we talking like nature versus nurture when it comes to sleep?
Basically. And we've got some amazing data to work with too.
Oh, wait on me.
All right. So there's this study from the Journal of Adolescent Health, and get this, they surveyed over 165,000 teenagers.
Wow. That's a lot of teenagers.
Yeah, right. And from 24 countries in Europe and North America.
Okay, so we're talking like a pretty decent sample size here.
Totally. So, big picture, we're trying to figure out where teens sleep the most, where they sleep the least, and how many are actually getting those recommended 8 to 9 hours.
I am so ready for this. Let's get into it.
All right, so I'm going to let you kick us off. What's the most surprising thing you found in all this data?
Honestly, just how much sleep duration varies. I mean, we're talking a difference of more than an hour and a half between the countries, with the shortest and longest average sleep times.
Wait, an hour and a half? Seriously?
Soon on school nights, it's like some teens are getting an entire extra sleep cycle compared to others.
That is wild. Okay, so spill the beans. Who are the sleep champions? And who's, struggling to catch those Z's?
All right, so on school nights, teens in Poland are averaging just 7 hours and 47 minutes.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah, it's not a lot. But then you've got teens in Flemish Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
They're sleeping over 9 hours.
Whoa. Can you imagine how different Monday mornings must feel in those two places?
Right. Talk about a tale of two countries. It makes you wonder how these sleep differences, actually play out in their lives.
Totally. Do the teens in Belgium just feel way more, alert and focused in school?
I mean, it's definitely possible, but we also have to factor in the weekend catch-up effect.
Oh, yeah, of course. The weekend lie-in. Everyone gets to sleep in a bit more then, right?
Exactly. Across the board, we see this increase in sleep duration on non-school nights. For example, Greek teens.
Yeah.
They get around 9 hours and 31 minutes on the weekends. But those Flemish teens,
Still going strong.
oh yeah, they're averaging over 10 hours.
So even if teams in some countries are missing out during the week, maybe that weekend catch-up helps protect them from some of those negative effects of sleep deprivation.
That's what we're hoping, but it still doesn't explain the huge difference in weekday sleep.
Right, right. So what is going on there? Why such a big gap between countries?
Well, this is where things get really interesting, and we have to talk about social jet lag.
Okay, so social jet lag, I've definitely heard of this. It's like when your body wants to sleep, but your schedule says no, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that mismatch between your internal clock, like biologically, and the sleep schedule that, well, society kind of imposes on you.
I think we can all relate to that.
For sure. And in this study, they found every country showed signs of social jet lag, but the severity, it varied a lot.
Really? Like how much?
Okay, so Swedish teens, they experienced the most extreme shift. Over 2 hours difference between their school night and weekend sleep schedules.
2 hours? Wow.
Yeah. And on the other end of the spectrum, teens in Moldova, they had the least amount of social jet lag with a little over an hour difference.
Wow. Okay, 2 hours, though, to those Swedish teens. That's got to be rough. What's going on in Sweden?
I wish there was one simple answer, but it's probably a whole bunch of factors, like a perfect storm of, well, sleep disruptors. But one thing that we know plays a role is school start times.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you have to wake up before your body is ready, you're basically fighting your natural sleep rhythm all day, right?
You got it. And it's no wonder those Swedish teens are catching up so much on the weekends.
No kidding. But it's not just about feeling tired, is it? Doesn't this whole misalignment thing mess with your health?
Absolutely. Physical health, mental health, academic performance, even your social life. It can all be affected by this clash between your internal clock and your social demands.
So it's not just how many hours you sleep, but also when you get those hours.
You're catching on. Timing is everything when it comes to sleep. And this actually brings us to another interesting finding, the impact of age on sleep patterns.
Oh, right. The teenage years, always known for late nights and even later mornings. So what did the study say about that?
Well, here's the trend. As teenagers get older, they tend to sleep less on school nights, go to bed later, both during the week and on weekends, and guess what?
More social jet lag.
Bingo! For instance, if we look at 11-year-olds and 15-year-olds in Slovenia,
Okay.
the younger group is getting almost an hour and a half more sleep on school nights.
Wow, that's a big difference. No wonder those older teenagers get such a bad rap for being grumpy in the morning.
Yeah.
Their bodies are practically begging for sleep.
You said it. And this challenges that whole idea that teenagers are just lazy or choosing to stay up late. It's more complicated than that.
Totally. So we've covered location, day of the week, age. What about gender? Do boys and girls have different sleep patterns as teenagers?
You know, this was one of the most surprising findings for me.
Really? Tell me.
There are some small, tiny variations between countries, but overall, boys and girls show very similar sleep patterns.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah.
That's not what you'd expect, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
all those jokes about girls needing beauty sleep.
I know, right? But the data just doesn't back it up. Take Slovenia, for example. Actually, girls there slept significantly more on weekends than boys.
Interesting. Okay, so if biological sex isn't a major factor, what about social factors? Like, does being from a wealthy family affect how much sleep a teenager gets?
That's a great question. And it takes us to another layer of complexity in this whole sleep story.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Well, unlike some older studies, this one didn't find a clear link between family affluence and how long teens slept.
Really? So money can't buy you more sleep?
It seems that way. The results were all over the place, really. Different patterns in different countries, no consistent trends.
So it's like a puzzle then. It's not just biology, it's not just age, it's not even about wealth.
That's a mix of everything, right?
Exactly. What else is going on here? What's the missing piece?
Well, that's where the real mystery lies. It's probably a whole bunch of factors working together. We're talking about cultural attitudes towards sleep, routines within families, access to technology, even just how the school day is structured.
So many possibilities. Sounds like we need to do some more digging to truly understand what's shaping these global sleep patterns.
We do, and there's definitely more to uncover.
Yeah, and I think the study gives us some pretty interesting hints, actually. Think about homework, for instance,
Yeah.
and all those after-school activities. I mean, that stuff can really vary from country to country.
Yeah. Like in some cultures, there's that huge push for good grades, academic achievement above all else.
Exactly, and all those extra study hours, well,
Yeah.
they often come at the expense of sleep. It's almost like a competition, isn't it? Sleep
Sure.
deprivation Olympics. Except, I wonder, are all those study hours actually helping? Or are these kids just too tired to learn anything?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And researchers are still trying to figure it out for sure. But there is some evidence that sleep deprivation, like chronic sleep deprivation, it can actually mess with your learning. Like you can't remember things as well. It's harder to focus.
So maybe those teens who are pulling all-nighters are actually hurting their grades in the long run.
It's possible, which just goes to show, we need to think of sleep as part of academic success, not the enemy of it.
That's a good point. And speaking of things that might be messing with sleep, what about technology? I mean, we all know smartphones and social media. That can be a real problem when it comes to getting a good night's rest.
Oh, absolutely. And while this study didn't specifically zero in on technology, it does acknowledge the potential impact of all that screen time. I mean, we've all heard about blue light, right?
Yeah, the stuff that's supposed to keep you awake.
Right. So blue light from all those devices, it messes with your melatonin production, which is the hormone that regulates your sleep cycle.
So basically, scrolling through TikTok before bed is like telling your brain, hey, stay awake.
Pretty much. And it's not just the light. Think about all that engaging content, the notifications, the constant fear of missing out. It keeps your brain buzzing even after you've turned off your phone.
No wonder so many teenagers have trouble falling asleep.
Right. It's like a recipe for sleep disaster. It really underscores the importance of having some boundaries, especially in those hours leading up to bedtime.
Absolutely. So we've talked about school start times, piles of homework, the whole technology thing. Anything else? Any other cultural factors that might be playing a role here?
You bet. Family routines, even just cultural norms around sleep, it can all make a difference. Like in some cultures, it's totally normal to eat dinner late, stay up chatting, put family time above everything else.
Which sounds lovely, but maybe not so great for sleep, huh?
Right. It's like you're caught between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, you want to honor those traditions, spend time with your family. But then your body's like, hey, I need some rest.
Tough balance.
Yeah, for sure. Especially for teens who are trying to be more independent, but also still got to respect their family's expectations.
So what's the solution? Any magic bullet for this whole global sleep crisis?
I wish. But honestly, I think just knowing about these cultural factors, that's a huge step in the right direction. Awareness is key.
Yeah, for sure. But awareness alone doesn't fix the problem. What can we actually do to help teenagers get the sleep they need?
Well, there are definitely things we can try, both on an individual level and on a bigger societal level. So for individuals like parents, educators, they can really help teens create healthy sleep habits.
Oh, so,
I mean, encouraging a regular bedtime routine, making sure there's not too much screen time before bed, even just making the bedroom a more relaxing, sleep-friendly place.
all great tips. But what about those bigger societal things? How do we tackle those?
Well, that's where policies and systems come in. One big one that's getting a lot of attention is school start times.
Ah, yeah. Like pushing those back so they're more in sync with teenagers' natural sleep patterns. Seems like a pretty obvious solution, right?
Right. Later start times, more sleep, teens that are less, well, grumpy.
Yeah.
But of course, nothing's that simple. I mean, changing school schedules, that's a big deal logistically, and there's bound to be some pushback.
I bet. But the benefits seem worth it. Like, it could really have a huge positive impact on those teens' lives. Are there any other policy changes we could try?
Absolutely. Public health campaigns, for instance, really getting the word out about the importance of sleep. And we can't forget about education, like actually teaching kids about sleep in school.
So it's not just about changing schedules, but changing how we think about sleep, too.
Exactly. We got to make sleep a priority. Like,
Yeah,
it's just as important as diet and exercise and all that other stuff we hear about.
totally. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. We've covered so much ground already. Before we move on to our final takeaways, I just got to say, those Flemish teens are still blowing my mind.
Mhm.
Even on weekends, they're getting so much sleep. Makes me wonder if Belgium is like a sleep haven for teenagers.
Seriously. Those consistent sleep patterns, those high averages, it's like they've cracked the code that so many other countries are struggling with.
Maybe we need to send a research team to Belgium, figure out what their secret is. I mean, I'm only half joking. There's clearly something going on there that's promoting healthy sleep.
Definitely. It would be super interesting to dig deeper into that, see what's working so well for them.
All right, listeners, if any of you happen to be from Belgium, give us a shout. We'd love to hear your take on why Belgian teens seem to be winning the global sleep race. Now, before we wrap up, any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
You know, I think for me, the big takeaway here is we really shouldn't underestimate how important sleep is. It's not just about feeling well rested.
It's like it affects everything, right?
It really does. We're talking physical health, mental health, how well teens do in school, even their social lives. Sleep is crucial for all of that.
So true. Okay, listeners, if you're out there and you're struggling with this stuff, you are not alone. Whether you're a teen who's nodding off in class, or a parent who's worried about their kids' sleep, or just someone who wants to learn more about all this, seriously, there's a lot of research going on right now to help us understand sleep better.
Absolutely. And the good news is there are things we can all do, both individually and as a society, to make healthy sleep a priority.
So what can people do? Like, what are some concrete steps to make sure we're all getting enough rest?
Well, paying attention to your sleep patterns is a good start. Or if you're a parent, pay attention to your kids' patterns. Ask yourself, what can I change to make sleep more of a priority?
Yeah, good point. I think sometimes we just go through life on autopilot, you
Right.
know? We don't stop to think about those little things that could make a big difference.
Right. Even small changes can have a big impact.
Totally. Okay, so if our listeners take away one thing from this whole conversation, what should it be?
Don't underestimate the power of a good night's sleep. Think of it as an investment.
In what?
In your health, your happiness, your future, it really is that important.
Well said. This has been a really eye-opening conversation. I know I'm personally feeling inspired to make some changes in my own life.
Me too. And hey, listeners, remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Start with something manageable.
Yeah, like setting a regular bedtime or
Yeah.
putting your phone away an hour before you go to sleep.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out for help if you need it. There are people and resources out there to support you.
So true. And with that, I think it's time to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with another episode, diving deep into a new and exciting topic. But until then, sleep well, everyone.